Welcome to a Faithful God podcast. I'm your host, Tammy Rotzel, and today on the show, survivor leader Patty Bennett is joining me to talk with us about labor trafficking. She's going to share her journey through it. She's going to explain to us what labor trafficking is and what you and I can do right now, what we can do today to help stop labor trafficking. So grab those earbuds and your favorite beverage and join me for today's show. Hi, Patty. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited and so honored to be here. Thank you.
Oh, gosh. I always like my listeners to know kind of just how we connected and such. And so I guess we met in the meetings, as my listeners know and my community know, that I have just recently joined the fight against human trafficking. And by join the fight, truly right now, I am totally, I'm excited. All the emotions with it. But so we sat in on these meetings together, and you were one of the speakers at one of the meetings, or one of the people, the mentors that Rebecca brought in. And I have to be honest with you, Patty, and forgive me, because there may very well be questions that I'm going to ask you that you answered that night. But still to this day, my mind is so blown by it all. And I've been trying to process all of it. So forgive me if I ask another question. But again, our listeners, they didn't hear that anyway. However,
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
This is hard. This is, I was telling, as I told a few other people, I said, there have been several times that I've actually, because when I say I've joined the fight right now, most of what I'm doing is research and trying to understand and to make sure that the things that I do, I'm honoring and doing the best job I can do for just in that fight against human trafficking. And so that's where my fight is, or where I am right now, is just learning everything that I possibly can. But there have been so many times that I have said, God, can I do something else? This one is really, really hard. I don't want this one. You kind of go, oh my goodness, what can I do, kind of thing. So anyway, Patty, if you will introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get on with some questions and stuff.
Okay. Sounds great. Well, thank you again so much for creating this space for me to be here and bring awareness to human trafficking and labor trafficking in specific.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Patty, and I'm a survivor of labor trafficking.
Mm-hmm.
I have been working for the past 15 years as a professional coach and entrepreneur. I graduated with a bachelor's degree, high honors, super excited about that, and finishing my master's as well in life coaching, counseling. And I'm married. I have 3 kids, and I'm really, really grateful to be here and really glad that you reached out after you participated in Finding Your Lane with Rebecca Bender. I'm very grateful to be here.
Absolutely. And now you're on the West Coast. I know this, we through our emails and all of that. So are you around the area where Rebecca was, Tom, and Caitlin, where everyone is? Are you in that same area or no?
No, I'm in southern area. So I'm further, not in the same area at all. Yeah.
Okay. I actually was recording with Caitlin yesterday. I got to have Caitlin Zick on. I think she was the night before you were on, if I'm not mistaken, during those meetings. But that was just incredible as well. But so if you will,
she was great.
Oh my gosh, she really is. She's just such a, she and her husband, they're just powerhouses for Jesus. And it is so cool to see. It really is. So if you will, tell us about labor trafficking. Tell us what labor trafficking is, to give us kind of an overview of what labor trafficking truly is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So in Find Your Lane, you heard a little bit, there are many different types of trafficking. There are many different ways to fight trafficking as well. And today I'm excited to give you a different perspective, in sharing my story on what labor trafficking looks like.
Yeah.
So things that you're going to look for, and then ways for your listeners to help too. So labor trafficking in the United States is defined as in the use of force, fraud, and coercion. So those are three important words to
Mhm,
remember.
mhm.
And through those means, there's a subjection. So a way to recruit somebody for involuntary service, that bondage, slavery, or peonage. So that's the definition according to the United States Victims of Trafficking Act of 2000.
Mhm.
And within that definition, you will find that it falls under sex trafficking and labor trafficking. So
Okay.
for both. So
Mhm,
the use of force, fraud, of coercion,
mhm.
um, and the means would be for the labor trafficking or sex trafficking.
Right. So, so, and I apologize. I'm writing notes because of when I think
Okay.
of something real quick. So you said, did you say from 2000?
Yeah, that's when the Victims of Trafficking and Violence Protect Act
Mhm.
um, was passed. The law was
Okay.
passed for, in the fight against human trafficking. So that's the definition that you will find. Like if you can Google it, and you can go to the U.S. Department, uh, uh, all the websites really. You
Yeah.
can find this definition
So,
from 2000.
okay. So and when you say all the websites, are you
That's
talking
the legal definition.
about, okay.
The websites for US, yeah,
Yeah.
all the websites related to trafficking. And anytime you're researching about human trafficking, the
Mhm.
websites, any research you'll be doing, the websites should have that definition of
Yeah.
what human trafficking is. So
Oh,
it's human trafficking, and under human trafficking, there are many different types of trafficking,
right.
and they will all fall under this category where force, fraud, or coercion will
Mhm.
be used to um, a perpetrator will use to um, recruit a victim, or
Yeah.
manipulate a victim, a
Yeah.
possible victim.
Yeah. And your session that I sat in on, I have to be honest with you, and I feel really bad about this, to be perfectly honest with you, but I was blown away. I had no idea something like this was happening in the United States.
Hmm.
So, if you
Yes,
will,
yes.
like, give us an example of how
Mhm.
is this playing out in the United States? What's going on in the
Okay.
US? And um, yeah, like what, like to help people understand exactly
Mhm.
how this is happening. Like what, yeah. Does that make sense? Is that
Okay.
does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, absolutely. So now that we have the definition, right, what does that look like in real life?
Yeah.
So I can give you I'm an expert in my story.
Mhm.
And that is a story of labor trafficking, which falls under the definition that we just shared. So I'll share a little bit about that. And
Yeah.
then that way, your listeners, can get an idea of what that looks like in real life. Because again, there's so many different types of trafficking, and there's some things that you'll be looking for when you're listening, right? And what you will be looking for as you hear me sharing the story, try to identify where you see that use force, fraud, or coercion.
Mhm.
And that's a way to start. So I'll share a little bit about my story. So for me, it started with a strong desire to get my education in America.
Mhm.
I really wanted to learn English, get my degree here, and
Mhm.
then go back to Brazil. That's where I'm from.
Mhm.
To get a really great job. That was like a requirement, to get a great job is to speak the language and to have a really good education.
Yeah.
So I signed up with the company that promised the American dream. We met with them, and they said, that I will go to college, I will have a place to live. And on top of that, I will also have a job just working a few hours a week as a nanny, or you hear mostly here it said it's called all pair,
Mhm.
where I could pay my bills, put gas in the car, things like that, so I can go to college here. So truly an amazing opportunity to anybody that travels to America or out of America as well. This is an opportunity that you can go from America to other countries as well.
Mhm.
So I was really excited about the opportunity,
Mhm.
and they sold it really well. And later found out that this company was manipulated. They sold the dream and they charge as a fee. The families in America was charged a fee as well. And all of the process that they were using was all in the black dark web, if you will, and where there was no way to do any background check on families or on people coming from other countries. And they were just collecting the money, and they hacked a website and they shared the information from the website just to make it more simple. Um, so they said that the family would take care of my expenses as well, to get here. And so that was even more exciting that they would help me with that. So when I got here, I learned that it was nothing like that. um, I could not go to college. In fact, I couldn't barely leave the house. I earned very little pay. I went from working all the time. I had no time of my own. I was not able to make decisions, to take breaks, to do what I wanted. So there was a lot of coercion, manipulation, a lot of stealing of fear. I was trapped with no hope of ever leaving. And then one day I escaped and I started my journey here in America to make those dreams come true and heal from all the trauma that I went through. So my story is one among thousands. And so this is just an example of, of people learning about labor trafficking and noticing those patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. I forgive me. So I'm not being a very good host here. My eyes are tearing up, and I just, what blows my mind is you were going through what you thought was a company. They sold you this
Yes.
dream,
Yes.
and like, I'm just,
Yeah.
I'm just blown away. I'm just dumbfounded. So let me ask you this, just
Mhm.
a few questions here. Am I understanding correctly that with labor trafficking,
Mhm.
much of the time there is sexual exploitation that goes along with that?
No,
It's
not
not.
no.
Okay.
That's not true.
Okay,
No.
good. Well, I'm
No, it
glad.
can happen. There's a
Okay.
cross. So that's a great question. Thank
Okay.
you so much for asking that,
Yeah.
because there is a lot of confusion and there is also myths, right, that surrounds that. So I really appreciate the question.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's not necessarily true. Can
Okay.
it happen? Yes. Is there a blending, right? Like where things get crossed over, where if you would hear something similar to my story, where people would come here and they would be forced to fall into the sex trafficking.
Okay.
For my story, I wasn't.
Mhm.
There was nothing related to that for my story. For my story, I was trapped in labor work,
Mhm.
involuntary servitude. It's the appropriate term
Right.
if you're researching that. But it does happen. That's not to take away
Mhm.
for one or the other. It does happen where people are sold the dream,
Mhm.
um, and are told that all these things are going to be there for them when they go somewhere. It doesn't have to be across country, right? It could be across states.
Mhm.
It could be across cities. It could be in your own backyard. I
Yeah.
mean, it could be like, the house behind yours. It could be anywhere. And that would be, again, the force, fraud, or coercion for either labor or trafficking, or some labor or sex trafficking, or both.
Okay. Okay. So,
Does that
no,
help
very
clarify a little bit?
yeah, yeah, that totally helps. Thank you. And I'm so glad you cleared that up because like I said, and I have no doubt, and maybe it was even you that said that, or I don't know. I have no doubt that that was, that I have heard that before.
Mhm.
But again, I'm trying to process everything because it's just so unbelievable. One thing though, when we were in the meetings, the thing that was I just couldn't believe was the fact that the laws that are in the United States and as a let me put this out there. So I was sharing that I was joining this fight with someone and explaining that I really wanted to have some trafficking uh oh um oh gosh the it just went not professionals, that's not the right word for it, trafficking experts.
Leaders?
Yes,
Okay,
leader
expert,
expert.
yes,
Yes,
survivor leaders,
yes,
expert,
thank
yes.
you. And thank you for that. And so, and when I talked about labor trafficking or mentioned it, because again, I'm not sharing a lot of information yet because I'm still
Mhm.
learning, but they said, well, why can't they just leave? And I said, well, that's a great question. And that's something that blew me away. Can you explain to us, when we're talking about, the fact that you can't just leave and what the laws are in the United States in order for you to get, is it your visa? Because the visa you
Mhm.
get to come in the United States is just for that one person. Is that correct?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, it's just for that one specific job. Yeah.
one
So
would
for
it be the company or the company, I say in air quotes, or
mhm.
okay, okay, it would be. Okay, okay.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
depends. Yeah, it would be related to, yeah, it would be connected to the company. So that's like two questions, right? So I do get, we all human trafficking survivors get asked that question, why didn't you just leave?
yeah,
And I love to answer that for sure. That we do get asked that a lot. And your other question, I want to answer that as well.
yeah,
Um, because what does that look like? How do you get, how are the victims
mhm.
getting trapped, right? I think, if you will, that would be one of your questions. So is it okay if we address that one first, and
Please,
then
please.
I'll jump into
Yep,
that next one?
yeah,
um
absolutely.
yeah, so it doesn't look, so trafficking doesn't look like we think it looks like sometimes. It's nearly impossible to escape.
Mhm,
And why is that? The coercion and the manipulation is a big piece to
mhm,
that. So those are two big words to remember:
mhm,
coercion and that manipulation. And labor trafficking, for example, it can happen anywhere, in massage parlors, sweatshops. Those are the stories that you hear the most. But
mhm,
it can also happen, a housekeeping, janitorial services, international students, office work, sales force. There's lots of stories of people that were told that they're going to come here work, for the sales force, and it turned out that wasn't the case.
mhm,
Nail salons, restaurants, hotels, and then, so these are U.S. citizens or immigrants, right? That come to the U.S. or other countries as well. Come go from here to other countries,
mhm,
and when they get here, they come usually with a visa, and that visa is specific to a type of work they're gonna do in the country, and is normally connected through the company. So they get the visa through the company. So that alone creates that link, what you will call it, control. It gives the company power over somebody, so
mhm,
they can do almost anything, right, that they want, because they control that visa situation, they control the immigration
yeah,
piece, which is everything keeping that person there.
mhm,
The other piece to it is that when you're hear stories about human trafficking, people expect to see violence.
Yeah.
People expect to see that you were chained to somewhere, or that you were just thrown in a van or kidnapped, which it does happen, for sure. Absolutely happens. But in reality, a survivor of labor trafficking or sex trafficking, it looks like any other hardworking person that you may see.
Mm.
The difference is that when they're trafficked,
Mhm.
they can't clock out.
Yeah.
They don't have power to do what they want to do. So
Mm.
the victims are manipulated by coercion, by fear.
Mhm.
It's nearly impossible to walk away. And some of the things that will fall under that is the survival, the debt, isolation, language barrier,
Yeah.
and the immigration status.
Right.
So that kind of falls under one of your questions,
Mhm. Yeah.
how does it work, right? How does that happen?
Mm.
So when you put all of that under perspective is when then you fall under your next question, which is like, why don't you leave?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just kind of like taking all this in. So please, yeah, go
Mhm.
ahead and keep going and head right into the next question. I
Okay.
know I'll have more in just a moment, but yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. Thank
So
you.
that, yeah, absolutely. We do get questioned, all of us survivors, why don't you leave? Why don't they leave? Just
Mhm.
walk away, run something.
Mhm.
So you'll be surprised to hear that I did escape 3 times.
Oh,
And yes,
oh
I did.
gosh, Patty.
And
Mhm.
so it proves the point of how hard it is to
Mhm.
find help when you decide to flee.
Yeah.
And this is the key piece that I'd love to highlight again, and I can say it again.
Mhm.
It just proves the point of how hard it is to
Mhm.
find help when you decide to leave, to flee, to escape.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so let me tell you a little bit about the day that I finally escaped.
Please. Yeah.
So one day, okay, that will help put a little bit more in perspective, right?
Mhm.
To give a visual of how it looks like. So
Yeah.
we talked about the manipulation, the coercion, the force, and you got a picture of that. And then it comes down to why didn't you leave? Or one is again finding the help, right? From once you do decide to leave.
Mhm.
Uh, the next thing I'll share a little bit about my story to illustrate that.
Mhm.
One day, the law enforcement did raid the house that I was in.
Okay.
There was tons of police cars, helicopters, people coming down from helicopters with huge guns, the SWAT team. I felt like I was in a Hollywood movie.
I
Uh, it,
Yeah.
it was like police everywhere.
Yeah.
Uh, just a helicopter, just surreal, just a ton amount of people that raided the house.
Mhm.
And the family was being investigated for other crimes,
Mhm.
and all the police, all of that was happening for other crimes. And at the end of that long, long day,
Mhm.
an officer took me by the arm and just gave me back to her. Sorry, part is always hard to remember. So that moment that he just took my arm, took me out of the SWAT truck, and took me back to the person that wasn't arrested. I knew that I was not gonna get help, that I was alone, that there was nowhere for me to go, nothing that anybody could do for me. So I gathered the courage and I just ran. And I ran and I ran and I ran um, after that day. So
Mm.
that was the last time that
Mm.
I was at the house. And this is why I think it's so important to provide education and
Mhm.
advocacy to the public and to law enforcement.
Yeah.
We need the systems in place so that when victims of labor trafficking decide to leave,
Mhm.
they have support in place to help them.
Yeah.
This is why I'm so passionate about
Yeah.
this. And I'm so grateful that you opened this door, this opportunity for us to share a little bit about human trafficking and specific labor trafficking.
Yeah, absolutely. And please forgive me because I'm sitting here. If our listeners, if you're watching on YouTube, you're seeing my response. And Patty, please forgive me for that. I'm trying not to have responses like that, but I
It's
very
okay.
much want to honor your story.
It's okay.
So I'm just like, and you know what? I think you did tell that in the meeting because as that was coming back to me, but I had forgotten that. So when you left, if you don't mind, like when you left, what did you do? Because you don't have a visa to do anything else. So how does that work?
For me at that time, I did not have any support. I was truly on my own.
Oh my,
um, I I would say with fully confident that it was God.
yeah,
God had me.
yeah.
People showed up out of nowhere, and they offered me a bed. They offered me food,
Mm,
um, and I survived. I made it through with the help of good people
yeah.
that had no idea, didn't understand. Survivors out as you escape or you're going through this,
Mhm.
you don't actually know that you were a victim. This is important to people to know too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know. You obviously know this is not right. I obviously knew that,
Mhm.
speaking for myself, that this is not okay, that
Yeah.
this is not right, that I want out. I want safety. I want peace. And but you don't know that you were a victim. It takes many years and a lot of work for the survivor to identify, what they went through.
Mhm.
So people helped me at that time, but they helped me out of the goodness of their heart, not because they were labeling what just happened to me. Because it is hard, like you said in the beginning, to wrap your mind around it. Like,
Yeah.
what? You're in America. How were you locked in someone's house in a great neighborhood? How is this happening?
Yeah. Yeah. And do you, I mean, well, not obviously, excuse me for saying that, but were you, because this is a trauma bond, correct?
Right.
Like a
Yes. That's
circumstance.
also something that happens
Mhm.
in, yeah, that's a great term.
Mhm.
That is the correct term,
Mhm.
I would say, to use
Mhm.
when you're in that situation.
Yeah.
It is trauma bonding.
Mhm.
For my case,
Mhm.
the person, gained my trust. Learned a little bit about me once I was speaking a little bit more English. I could write things that told a little bit about me,
Mhm.
and so the person uses those things that they learn about you, and which is for normal for every human. We want to be loved. We want to belong.
Mhm.
We want to do a good job, in our life. And so those simple things, our basic needs, can be used and manipulated, right? And
Mhm.
so the family managed to take that's what a manipulator,
Mhm.
perpetrator would do,
Mhm.
to take that it's not a small thing, but lack of better words, right? It just, all I needed was love,
Yeah.
attention, a place to live and eat and go to school.
Yeah.
That's all I needed.
Yeah.
And so they form a bond, which is called trauma bonding, where you start becoming very dependent on them,
Mhm.
for those things, for the food, for the house, transportation, for expectation, a lot of hope, right? I was told all the time, like, you're going to school next week, are you starting school next week, you're starting school the following week. So it creates the dependence, in that relationship, uh, where then when you're reaching that point where they're not doing what they're told, then they give you something to make you happy, a gift, or food, or something simple. Like one time was shampoo. I really needed shampoo, like it's simple things like that, that it creates that trauma bonding, which is to answer that question again about why do you stay.
Mhm.
That trauma bonding is connected to that reasoning to of why
Yeah.
we stay, or why do we go back. Would I just sleep on the street? I have no visa anymore. I have else. So would I be on the street, or would I just stay here, you know,
Mhm.
s- with this suffering? So that's where that trauma bonding comes in. It's basically your choices are so limited,
Mhm.
they end up in staying in that familiar pain.
Yeah.
It's a choice of this pain or that pain.
Yeah.
Which one would I go with? Which one people choose?
Oh my goodness.
And I shared these details, and I hope that the listeners can take that in the in looking at labor trafficking in specific, that we're doing work, simple work, just like everyone else.
Yeah.
It's just what you put the person under is just about valuing people, valuing their work,
Yeah.
not taking advantage, not exploiting people, and paying them a fair wage, and the holidays, right? Time off.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And you talked about the sleep deprivation and stuff. In
Mhm.
the conference I was in last week, one of the women there, just amazing. She has a shelter out in California, I believe it is. And that was one
Okay.
of the things that really stuck with me, is she said, in the first, she was sharing some of the things that, the way they run their program and stuff when people come to their
Mhm.
shelter who are trafficked. And
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and she said the first thing in the first, I believe it was maybe 48 hours or so, 72
Mhm.
hours, primarily someone who is, whether it's sex trafficking or labor trafficking, they
Mhm.
are sleeping in those first, because of the
Yes.
sleep deprivation and just your body's need to sleep and heal and,
Mhm. Mhm.
shut down and stuff. So,
Yes.
wow.
Yes. And that's a long process.
Mhm. I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long process. It has been a very long process. And that's also good to know. Thank you for sharing that too. For your listeners to know that every support, um, and respect, all that matters, because it's a healing, emotional healing, physical healing,
Yeah.
psychological healing, that it takes a long time, when you come from from any trauma, and
Yeah.
most definitely from complex trauma such as human trafficking.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just so much.
Mhm.
There's just so much. Like I mean, for me, and to hear your story, I just can't even imagine. But I would love to tell us. So now you are counseling. And now,
Yes.
are you counseling, is your niche, I don't even know if that's the right way to say it, but are you counseling
My
trafficking?
niche. So I did get my degree, my bachelor's and my master's in counseling, but my focus became in life coaching. So my master's degree is specialized in coaching and life coaching.
Okay, and you
So
did that, I
coach.
apologize. Okay,
Yeah, no, that's okay. I
okay,
do have the both degrees has the counseling,
yeah,
the bachelor and the master's,
yeah,
and but my focus, and it has been for 15 years, I worked as an entrepreneur. It's coaching women, empowering, and coaching for the next steps, to not, to move from victim to victor, right? To become a survivor, to overcome what has happened. And my favorite verse in the Bible that really moved me in my healing was in Genesis, where it says that what was done against you is going to be used uh, for God's glory.
Amen.
And that's, literally not only what happened in my life, but it is part of my mission that we're going to use what happened to us to God's glory, to help others, to empower others. That yes, we were a victim at a time, at different situations, all of us, not just survivors of human trafficking, but we had things happen in our lives that wasn't quite great, right? It wasn't quite exciting. It was very traumatic.
Yeah.
And we all have tools, and we have God that to rely on, to move on and to empower others and make a change in the world, impact the world,
Yeah.
lead leaders, lead ourselves as we make a difference, make a change. And that's what I do. I help people find, and through Elevate Academy, which is Rebecca Bender's academy. So I work with survivors. We have tons of students in our academy. Over 800 students have passed through and are part of Elevate Academy. And I work with them directly, in helping them find that direction in their career and their professional development, and find their calling, find their purpose, find what's next.
Mhm.
What can we do now? How can we make an impact? We are now not victims, but we're an expert in our situation. We're expert in what we went through, and we can make a difference in teaching communities, law enforcement, and find our lane and help others find their lanes as well. So that's what I do today, and I work with different restorative practices as well in supporting the survivors. I recently just became certified in equine guided coaching, so I'm gonna be adding that too,
Oh my
to
goodness.
really get full circle in how to support the whole person in this journey.
That is really, really cool. Oh my goodness, that is really, really cool. I love that. I just love what y'all are doing. I really did, or excuse me, I really do. Through Elevate and Rebecca Bender Initiative, and again, what amazes me is not only are you helping survivors, but you are also helping the rest of us learn about this and how to find our lane. And I just
Yes.
love it. I took the course, and actually I'm going to after I'm done on a big project I'm working on now, once I'm
Uh-huh.
done with that is my next thing I'm going to do, is to sit down and go through the sheet of, starting to find out where I can fit in here in my community and such. But I just love what you guys are doing. It
Mhm.
is unbelievable. It is so cool. And actually, I have Rebecca is going to be a guest on the show later this year. So I'm excited about that as well. But yeah, so tell us, someone,
Oh yeah.
I know, I'm so excited about it. I really am. Well, let me ask you, before I even ask the next question, let me ask you. So since you are on the West Coast. So are you primarily doing this because you have survivors from all over the world that are taking this course, this incredible course of yours? So you are doing primarily Zoom meetings and stuff, I would assume, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I facilitate all the groups, different times of the day.
Mhm.
To We have students in Europe, other countries as well, right? Because human trafficking is happening everywhere.
That's incredible.
Um, and so we do have our economic empowerment classes. Everything is available for all survivors of human trafficking anywhere in the world.
I love that. And, and we're sitting here talking about it, but I guess what I should do is just have you explain it, a little bit more about what Elevate is for survivors of human trafficking.
Yes. So Elevate Academy welcomes students, like I just shared, from all over the world. We have classes that are geared for survivors, made by survivors, that in many different areas of from career development through writing books, being a speaker, starting your own nonprofit, finding your purpose and your calling, everything that has to do with professional development and really preparing each survivor to what's next.
Mhm.
It's what we do. So we're here to empower our survivors to impact their life so they can follow their destiny, follow their calling, step into their purpose.
Yeah, that's so cool. That is just so cool. What Satan means for evil, what you all are doing there is unbelievable. Like, I always, kind of like, oh, I kind of like flick Satan off sometimes off my shoulder. Like,
Yeah.
you are no match for my God. That may not have been
No,
good. That may have been a horrible time in my life, but you know what? God will prevail
God
always.
is
And
bigger.
yeah,
Yes,
so
God is
much,
bigger.
so much so. Oh
Yes,
my goodness. So just
absolutely.
as we start wrapping up here, if you'll just tell me,
Mhm.
what is it like, if you can tell us what it is that we can do to help in, we have someone listening that thinks, you know what, this is not okay. Some again, we have to find our lane, and I'll be sure to put that
Yes.
in link in the show notes too, just to help people over there with that course, and to find out what it is, or what they can do in their community. But what is it? Speak to the
Mhm.
person that's listening right now that says, oh my goodness, what can I do? I need to, this is not okay. I need to step up, and what can I do?
Mhm. I would say number one is educate yourself.
Mhm.
Um, just by listening to this podcast today, you're already doing that. And I encourage you to continue to educate yourself on what is human trafficking,
Mhm.
and um, you can the Find Your Lane course, or they're really good, and take a course if you feel called or led to do even more within the
Mhm.
anti-trafficking movement.
Mhm.
Um, Another thing that I will add in here, as we're talking about labor trafficking, basically, we did talk about these deals, but there's more to labor trafficking as well. Child labor, forced labor.
Mhm.
There's a few other things in there that I encourage you all to, look that up and educate yourself on that. And
Mhm.
the part that you can make a difference is by researching the products that you're purchasing, how they're made, where they're coming from, because a lot of the things that we use today in our household, and it's child labor is behind it, or forced labor is behind it. And so this is like a whole topic on its own.
Mhm.
But I do want to share that because that is part of human trafficking as well.
Yeah.
And this is, to me, as an expert in labor trafficking, I would say is a huge piece where the community can make a gigantic um, impact on. I know that's not a correct English word, but truly, I
Yeah.
believe that this is a place that the community can make a huge impact. And this is, my next mission here that we're working on
Mhm.
to create some of that discussion around, talking to our millennials, our generation coming up that want to become entrepreneurs, and that has fair wages, that uses fair wages, that uses products that were not used, not exploitive, right? That the people making those products were not being exploited,
Mhm,
that people working in farms and sweatshops and all these huge companies,
mhm,
um, we can make a difference if we just choose how we're purchasing a product,
yeah,
where look at where they're coming from, and
mhm,
start new companies, that will stop the exploitation, the abuse of children,
mhm,
the exploitation around the world,
mhm,
and how we get our products.
mhm.
And there's a lot of websites you can look for that, to get an idea of some organizations that are already doing that. Like one of them is Little Market or Fair Trade LA. Um, so
Oh,
we can look that up, and that is something that you can make a huge impact, in this fight of against human trafficking, to put an end on that exploitation.
okay, that is huge right there, because you're right. If we stop doing that. So are you saying if we go to a place, a site, I want to make sure I understand this
Mhm.
correctly. If
Yes,
we go to a place
yes,
like Little Market or Fair Trade,
yes.
we can
Hmm.
research the products we purchase.
Right. Yes,
That's brilliant. I will
yes.
put that in the show notes for sure because
And I understand. Yes, yes, and I understand people tell me, and like, well, that's really hard for me to find the coffee and chocolate. Those are the top products where there's child labor and exploitation behind it, that we have it every day. And so I hear a lot, my friends, people say like, that's so hard to find. Yes, it might be hard to find right now, but if we make choices where we help the companies that are ready in the process
yeah.
of only selling coffee and chocolate, that are not using any type of exploitation to produce it, from label to the actual product,
Mhm.
then we can start making a change. There's so many things in this country, in this world, that was hard before, like just organic, right? Before it used to be like so hard to
Yeah.
find gluten-free things, and now we have it everywhere. So we can do the same thing with all the other products, and we can start the movement to end the exploitation of any human being.
Oh, I'm just like blown away right here because that is something each and every, even if, someone who's listening is like, you know what, this just isn't my fight, my calling, because I believe
Mhm,
God calls
mhm.
each of us to something different. But there are some components of
Yes.
trafficking that yes we can do on our own home by raising our children
Mhm.
to understand, to respect their bodies and respect the bodies of the opposite sex,
Yes.
all those
Yes.
things. But now what
Right.
you're doing is showing,
Right.
because trafficking is a business. It is a business, and if we can cut
Yes.
off that demand
Yes.
for it, then there won't be the need
Yes.
for that. That is you just blew my mind
Yes.
here. I just love that. I absolutely love
Yes,
that.
our children, they love technology, right? So let's create apps, let's create websites, let's create businesses that keeps track of where our products are coming from, or how to, who is hiring, housekeeping, nanny. I mean, we can do so much ideas, there are more ideas
Oh,
that can come out of there. But talk to our children about that. Like, this is called social entrepreneurship, right?
yeah.
Let's open that box and the demand, for the exploitation. We keep buying the products which we're feeding that exploitation.
Yeah.
And I understand that it is right now, it's a little bit hard to do.
Mhm.
I have a phone. I'm using uh, you know
Yeah.
things that unfortunately have been built through some type of exploitation.
Oh my gosh, Patty.
So
Wow.
I understand that is hard. But
Yeah.
if we talk to our children, talk to this generation, they're so hungry for entrepreneurial entrepreneurial ways to impact the world,
Yeah.
then I'm positive
Yeah.
that we can find solutions to end all exploitation across all different types of human trafficking.
Oh my goodness. I can't think of a better way to end the show on that, because that is just, that right there is a mic drop moment. And truly, like you said, we've oh God, what do I want to say? We've found our way around gluten free, vegan,
Mhm.
all these different things
Yes,
we have found our way around. We can
yes,
definitely find our way around this. We can
yes, we can.
definitely do that. That is so brilliant. And I'm just so excited. Patty, seriously, if there is anything, like you guys come up with anything you need me to help with in any way,
Okay.
reach out to me, please, because that right there,
Yes,
that's just brilliant to stop the demand.
yes.
And again, I think because I'm slowly processing all these things, I hadn't gotten
Mhm,
that far yet. My
mhm.
brain hadn't gotten there yet. But that
Yes,
for
and
me,
it's
so
all right because that was my call. That's my calling, right? That's my
yeah,
that's what I'm here for.
that's
I want to open that door, open, as wide as we can, partner with all these allies and all the people that want to make a difference, big or small, it doesn't matter. There's a place for everybody to win so
yes.
that we can stop this exploitation happening. Um, like as fast as we can.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. This is great. Well, Patty, you know what? I did not even prepare you for this, and I apologize. But I always like to, I try to end most of my shows with, what's your favorite, something that fills you up right now? What is something you love to do that just fills you up?
I love the ocean.
Oh, me
I
too.
love going out. I don't have to get in it. It's too cold for
Me
me.
too.
But just being there, it's just a place of peace for
Yeah.
me. A place to, calm down with all this passionate movements
Yes.
and all these to-do lists and kids and everything. I really love walking. I go for a walk every day. I really make sure that I have that life work balance that has become really important to me. So I go every week by the beach to just be there, to
Yeah.
just fill my cup again, to serve the community in the
Yeah.
capacity that I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's so true. I mean, we walk out our callings, and this particular calling is tough,
Yes,
and
it is.
um yeah, it's tough. And so therefore you've got to pour into yourself for sure.
Yes,
We've been talking about that a lot in my community about we cannot pour from an empty cup. And so yeah, for
yes.
sure. We love the beach too. My husband and I are at the beach every single weekend we can be there. We just love going. And so I guess, next time I'm there, I'll wave at you from the complete opposite
Yes.
end of the country. We are on opposite ends. So
Right.
uh-huh.
Right.
Well, Patty, thank you so
Absolutely.
much from the bottom of my heart. I cannot thank you for sharing your story today, and just giving us some great information, some things that we really need to know,
Mhm.
of the things that are happening right in our own communities, right on
Yes.
our own streets, in our own backyards, literally
Yes.
in our own backyards. So,
It
from the
is.
bottom of my heart, I truly, truly appreciate you giving me time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you opening
Absolutely.
this door, giving the opportunity for us to talk about subjects such as this. I really
Yeah.
appreciate you. Thank you for being obedient to your calling,
Mhm.
and thank you for having us all here have this opportunity to share.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Pretty amazing, right? Patty is just such a gem, and I really, really loved chatting with her. In fact, after we stopped recording, we continued to chat for quite some time afterwards, and she just really was just so good at helping me in this journey, of educating me, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because I have so much to learn about it. But I love the tips that she gave us, the things that we can do right this minute to help end labor trafficking. And what I've said so much in the past, and I believe, and we walk out every day, is that we all have one ultimate calling: to make God known and bring him glory. But how we walk out that calling is different. Like where we serve in God's kingdom is different. And what I love about, what Patty shared with us is this may not be your calling. This may not be where you are, where God is leading you to go. But one thing you can do is research where you're buying products. Again, as Patty and I were talking after we stopped recording, Patty was sharing with me that, it's not easy right now. Right now, it's not easy. This is so new. This is not new, the labor trafficking, but I mean, in as far as companies coming out and helping to end this, helping to end this exploitation of humans, this human trafficking, labor trafficking, all of that. But what I love is that even if you are not called to this particular mission, you can still help by researching where you're purchasing your things. And, as Patty and I were talking about, in the beginning, gluten-free was hard to find. Any new thing, it's a little bit harder to find. And quite frankly, it's a little bit more expensive. But as with everything, the more we step up and say, hey, this is not okay, I'm going to stop purchasing from places that allow this kind of, labor to go on in their companies. The more we do that, the better we'll be. Then we're creating less demand for them, and therefore there's no need for the laborers, the workers, the kids, the adults, everything. So I encourage you to step out and look for the things that you're purchasing. Before you do that, do a little bit of research and see where they are or how they are sourcing their labor is probably the best way to say that. I also love about Patty's story how, though in the hard, in the mess, in the pain, God will still prevail. God will still shine. That he will use our stories to help others, to encourage others, to say, you know what? You can do this. I've been there, and you can do it too. So I encourage you today, whatever your story is, whatever is causing you pain, just know that you can get through it. We've talked about this a lot, especially as we're going through this series on forgiveness. We have to lean into God. We have to make that ask. God, help me through this, because I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make it out. But I trust you, and we're going to choose to trust him until it's not a choice anymore, until we can feel it. And when our heart catches up with the Spirit, we're going to choose to trust him each and every day, even in the pain. So friend, I want you to go out, have a good week. Make sure you start researching those products that you purchase each and every day, each and every week, so we can work together and do our part in ending labor trafficking.